little bit off screen. Mike Chikasi with County Council. And I'm going to attempt to share my screen and let's see here. Oh, I do not want to do the gallery. How come my view there, exit full screen. Does that look better? No, because Zoom was not cooperating. Well, let me get up to my Zoom. That's what I keep clicking on, and it's over here. No? Exit minimize video. There we go. Harristown. Yep. And we're back in action. Right there. Yes, yes. So the presentation I'm going to run through tonight will be on the county. It is already on the website. All right. So tonight, yes. What happened there? Let's see. There we go. Does that look better on the screen there? All right. Okay, so hey, it's only a 2-minute delay. So anyways, this presentation tonight is the first of 4 public meetings we're going to have before new district boundaries in Yuba County are adopted. And I have a short video here that I believe Russ Brown put together for us, right? We're going to find out, see if it works. It gives us a little overview.
You know this place. It's Yuba County. It's home. And the number of people living here is growing like a tree on the banks of the mighty Yuba River. Which brings us to the point of this little video, the 2020 census. Right now, state and federal folks are still working furiously to pull together the numbers, but what would that mean to us in the 5 Board of Supervisors districts? It's a good question. Bottom line, it means making sure each district has an equal portion of the population to ensure both individuals and some groups have balanced representation within the Board of Districts. That sounds simple, right? Well, I mean, if there were only 5 people living in Yuba County, it would be simple. Each would get their own district, and that would be that. But of course, populations don't tend to grow equally within district lines. If you lived here long enough, you know growth happens mainly in the southern part of the county. Now, back during the 2010 census, Yuba County's population was about 72,000, and most of the growth happened, you guessed it, in the Plumas Lake region. By contrast, the 2020 census is expected to show that we added about 8,000 more people, growing to approximately 80,000 residents, and that the South County will again get the lion's share. Specifically, Districts 1 and 4, now those are typically associated with Linda and Plumas Lake. They are the 2 areas that we expect to have the greatest growth. So if that happens, the physical size of one or both of those districts will become smaller to ensure they end up with no more than 1/5 of the county's population. Now, by contrast, Districts 2, 3, and 5, mostly representing Marysville, Olivehurst, and the Foothills, well, they may have to expand a little bit in order to pick up more residents. Now you can see how it's getting to the point where putting community names to districts gets a little tougher, as approximately 16,000 residents who will comprise each district represent more than the populations of some of our communities and less than others. Later this year, once the census numbers reach the county, the process of adjusting supervisor districts begins. A committee created by the Board of Supervisors is coordinating the effort, but participation by residents, that's vital. Together, the process of redistricting can occur in a way that makes sense for our communities. Even though districts will cross community boundaries, We can still do everything possible to preserve within each district such things as neighborhoods, school districts, shared demographics, and more. The one thing that will not determine how lines are adjusted? Politics. So, that's the task. Get the numbers, and then get to work on finding meaningful ways to balance the Board of Supervisors districts. And your role is so important. Visit yuba.org/redistricting to learn more about the process and how to get involved. We really do look forward to working with you.
All right. Thank you for that, Russ. And that's the downside of turning the volume up for the video. All right. So back to our agenda for tonight. Still a little loud, Rochelle. There we go. I'll go over some timelines, some legislative changes since the last redistricting that took place in 2010, and then talk about how the public can stay involved in the process. So why do we redraw the district boundaries? The video kind of introduced that concept, but basically we need equal representation from the 5 districts in terms of population. And ideally, you have no more than a 5% difference in population between the districts. And the census definitely every 10 years helps us measure where we're at in terms of distributing population representation. So the 5 board members is just, and also to introduce the public to the current district boundaries. So we have, with the 5 districts, District 1 is represented by Andy Vasquez. District 1 is primarily the Linda area. District 2, which is the city of Marysville and a portion of West Linda, is represented by Don Blazer. District 3, which is primarily the Olivehurst area, is represented by Seth Fuhrer. And then District 4, which encompasses Beale Air Force Base, City of Wheatland, and Plumas Lake area, is represented by Gary Bradford. And then District 5 is represented by Randy Fletcher, and District 5 is basically the remainder of the county. And as you can see on the map, it's a pretty large land mass of Yuba County. But when these district boundaries were drawn in 2010, that was equal population representation. So prior to the 2020 census, we had a couple state laws enacted that changed a few things for us in terms of the redistricting. And one of the notable ones was the state really wanted to encourage more public participation. Now, when the state enacted these laws, this was pre-COVID, and I'll get into some of the timing issues, but the thought was there was going to be a longer process to mull over the information and have that additional public dialogue that the state was after. The reality I'll get into in a minute is that we're a little bit crunched on time because of the Census Bureau and the state getting information to us so that we can go through the process. And we have a hard deadline at the end of this year that I'll go over in a minute. But we will have 4 public meetings to discuss the redistricting process. So some of the things that we take into account as part of redistricting, there's the federal laws that dictate the redistricting process, as well as the state laws and some traditional principles. I'm sure most people have heard the term like no gerrymandering of boundaries, and what goes along with the connotation that goes along with gerrymandering. One of the things that maybe that on the traditional principles to think through, we really want to try to minimize voters shifted to different districts, and try to kind of preserve the core of an existing district, but also make sure that we're creating that equal population distribution between the districts, and also anticipating the future growth. So when we take a look at how the county is going to grow over the next 10 years, try to make sure that we don't have districts where they're lopsided 10 years from now, so that ideally they kind of grow equally in size over the next decade. So I touched on this, but this is very important, and this has been around for a long time on the no gerrymandering, and it's protected by the 14th Amendment there. So as far as timeline, we just last week, I shouldn't say we, the state last week just received information from the Census Bureau relative to the 2020 census. So they're definitely behind on the typical timeline. And the state has promised that by the end of October, that the counties will receive the adjusted census information, which kind of leads to the timeline that I wanted to go over with everyone. So we're having our first meeting tonight. The Census Bureau released information last week on the 16th. The state, again, will have the information by the end of October. We're gonna have a second public meeting the 9th of November. And then sometime in November, we will release our first round of kind of draft maps for public review. Have a third public meeting at the beginning of December, on December 6th, receiving comments on those draft maps. And then we will have the hearing before the Board of Supervisors on December 14th to consider adoption of the maps. And December 15th is the deadline to have the maps adopted by. So this is just overall in the U.S. I guess the relevance of this slide, our county was a pretty quick growing county over the last decade. You know, those in that brown color, that's where they had very little growth. And then you have the different shades of, I'm going to call that teal. Jamie, am I close? All right, and we're in kind of a darker shade of teal. We're in that 10 to 20% category. So we had a significant amount of growth over the past decade. All right, so something to take in mind as we look at how to deal with the growth and making sure that folks stay with other folks that in a district. You know, taking a look at characteristics like defining the neighborhoods and the type of things that how you as a public would define your neighborhood, and then looking a little bit larger than a neighborhood would be kind of defining a community of interest. You know, where you have shared characteristics. So these are definitely things that as we move forward, we want to make sure that we hear from the public. If, for example, there's areas in existing districts that feel like they would be better represented in the existing district versus move to a different district, or maybe that community being represented by more than one district. Those are that's the type of comments we'd like to hear from the public, because it helps kind of drive what the draft maps will look like. So I went over that slide as far as whether it's you know, a single representation of a community of interest or having multiple representatives. So our population, I've got my next slide is kind of highlight how we've seen growth over the last decade in Yuba County in terms of additional new residences. And so, and I have a map, I can zoom in on this later, but the point of this is all those little dots that are on that map represent a new residential structure. And from the last census in 2010 to the census in 2020, we had just over 2,200 residential structures built in Yuba County. Now, if you're quick to the math, that means if it was equal, each district would grow by 440 residential structures. You know, that would be an ideal situation. We didn't have that occur in Yuba County, and so that's why it's going to drive the need to move some boundaries around. For example, District 1, you know, it grew by almost double that. District 2 did not grow much during that period, and so it's going to need to expand its boundary, geographic boundary, to pick up population to kind of keep pace with the other districts. District 3 needs to do that a little bit as well. And then District 4, that represents Plumas Lake, City of Wheatland, and Beale Air Force Base, had the most growth over the past decade, and that's going to need the most trimming geographically. Its physical footprint is going to have to get smaller to balance out with the other districts. And then District 5 is going to need to grow slightly as well to get to the average. So there's, in the old days, all of this was very manual. You know, it was pencil to paper type of scenario. And then now with there's different softwares out there that definitely speed up the process as the information comes in from the Census Bureau. And the county will have it up in the near future on our redistricting website. We're planning to have a tool that even the public can use, where you'll be able to, in real time, move the boundaries around and come up with your own idea of how the district boundaries should look. And those are maps the public can then submit to the county to try and make it easier through this process to provide input. This is just kind of an example of the type of product that we're looking at. We're working with a software vendor right now to get this up and running. But the bottom line is on that software product, and frankly, any other ideas you have about redistricting is we really want to hear from the public and make sure that we have your input before we take the information that's provided to us from the state and start drawing draft maps. And let's see here. Besides to get involved, I think we're into to Q&A from there. Are there any questions Yes, we have a pretty small audience. Do we have any Zoom questions? Okay, I see there's some chats. I did not introduce myself.
A question to the Zoom room. Can you hear us now?
We can hear you. Can you hear us?
Thank you. So there was an inquiry in chats wondering who was speaking. So could I have Kevin reintroduce himself?
Yes, Kevin Mallon, Yuba County Administrator.
Kevin, hi. Can you hear me? This is Jim and Trish in Yuba Water.
Yep, we can hear you, Jim.
I just had one really kind of a quick question, more towards the end of the process, and this might be a question for your Mr. Council, Mr. Chikasi, about what, as a special district, when our board adopts a resolution, that modifies the map, does that have to go to the state Secretary of State, or is that just supplied to the recorder? I mean, I think I understand the process pretty well once we get the data from the state, but I wasn't sure where we go after that.
I'm not sure if you can hear on that one, but Mr. Chikasi will look into it.
Okay. Your mic's not on, Mike.
I'll look into it, Jim, and let you know.
Very good. Thank you. I just want to clarify. Someone's going to ask me. I anticipate, so I want to know.
I believe I saw another question come up. This would be another council question, whether it would be adopted by resolution or ordinance.
If I remember correctly, I believe it can be done by resolution. But I I got to look back at my notes. I just don't know off the top of my head.
And I believe there's a question about the committee itself, which is staff, county staff that the board has requested to prepare the information and put these public meetings together, gather the public input, and then be able to present that information to the board. Yeah, so who that would consist of, I don't know if we should really call it a formal committee, but it's essentially the staff from the county administrator's office, clerk recorder's office, county counsel's office, clerk of the board, and IT to provide some technical support and community development on technical support as well. All right. I'm going to November 9th. I was going to share this map. This was in the slide presentation, and it kind of I can zoom in a bit on this one just to kind of give everybody an idea of where. And this is a map that is on our website or will be on the website. Will be on the website shortly, but it gives everybody an idea of where each of those blue dots is a new home that was built in Yuba County between the 2010 census and the 2020 census. And when there's a lot of dots kind of clumped together, it's a little bit tough to see, like in the Linda area there, but it just kind of gives you an idea of where there is a concentration of new residences. Did the audience have any other questions? Or do I see any additional? I don't see any additional chat questions. Oh, there's one that came up. Yes, the County Office of Education is aligned with the county on district areas. Does the County Office of Education need to adopt a separate resolution to approve the changes by December? Another county council question. All right, we'll look into that one. All right. Well, that was kind of the end of the formal presentation. If anybody that's attended wants to chat with any of us afterwards, we're more than happy to do so. And as mentioned in the presentation, the county has a web page that we're keeping active, so active that we had the slide show up before we presented it tonight. But not the map, but anyways, but that web page is where you're going to find the most up-to-date information. It's also where you can contact us if you have any questions or want to provide us additional. Yeah, that was definitely the old days with the crayons. All right, thanks everyone.